He forgot who he was. The forest didn't. She fled the throne. Now every shadow hunts her. Together, they'll rewrite a war. With roots, blood, and fire. The jungle of Veridios never truly slept. Its canopy breathed with a pulse older than empires, and the ground twitched with roots that listened. Mist curled around broken branches like ghostly hands, and the creatures that moved between the trunks did so with patience, apex predators in a forest that remembered every trespass. Thane Voss stirred at dawn, not because of light, for sunlight never pierced the canopy, but because the rift wolves had gone silent. Silence was a warning in Veridios. The wrong kind of quiet meant something had changed. Something new had entered the jungle. He rose slowly, joints cracking, not from age, but from old wounds and the cold damp that soaked through his bones each night. His armor, a patchwork of scavenged composites and beast hide, clung to his frame like second skin. The scar over his left eye pulsed faintly, an old relic from a war he barely remembered. The mind forgets, but the body archives. With silent steps, he scaled a twisted root the size of a shuttle and crouched, surveying the horizon. In the distance, beyond the sulfur ponds and the screeching nests of the razor wings, a trail of smoke spiraled up into the false dawn. Not fire metal. Burnt metal. He grabbed his spear and vanished into the trees. It took him 4 hours to reach the crash site. Not because of distance, but because every inch of the forest demanded respect. The riven gorges, where the ground collapsed and reformed hourly. The spinning lianas that sensed warmth and snapped like whips. And the whisper fungus fields, where inhaling the wrong breath could trap your mind in hallucinations for days. When he arrived, the wreckage lay skewered across a basin of black stone. A once beautiful royal skimmer, now twisted metal and flickering systems. Whatever had hit it didn't just shoot, it tore. He crept closer, eyes scanning, senses stretched. No scavenger beasts. No acid flies. Just steam, sparks, and a faint cry. A figure lay half buried under a broken wing. She was small, but her presence filled the clearing like command. Skin the color of twilight deep sapphire. Hair, long and silver, clung to her cheeks like spider silk. Her suit, though scorched, bore the unmistakable sigil of Vera's royal line. Thane's breath caught. He knew that face. Even if the name sat like dust on the edge of memory. She stirred, eyes fluttering open violet, unfocused, defiant. You're not one of them. Thane didn't answer. He knelt, lifting debris with practiced care. Her leg was crushed. Internal bleeding. But her vitals were stronger than most would be after falling from the sky. She stared at him, voice ragged. Thane Voss. They said you were dead. His muscles froze. The name echoed through him like a bullet through bone. He didn't know her, but she knew him. And in her voice was no fear. Only urgency. They are coming. The faceless one has eyes everywhere. You have to. Something screamed above the canopy. A long, low note, mechanical, searching. Thane lifted her without another word. The forest shifted as he moved, leaves parting, roots rearranging, the jungle recognizing one of its own. He vanished into the underbrush just as the first scout drone broke through the smoke. They traveled in silence. He knew where to step, where not to. The beasts of Veridios watched but did not interfere. They had learned he was not prey. When they reached the cliffside cave, a hollow carved into a living stone, he set her down on moss and tore open an old medkit. Her eyes never left him. You don't remember me, she said, not as a question. He didn't answer. He applied a coagulant, wrapped her thigh, checked her pulse. But you fought for me once, she whispered. He paused. Something stirred in the depths of his fractured mind. A corridor. Gunfire. A scream. A child hiding behind marble columns. He blinked it away. Sleep, he said. She gave a bitter smile. Sleep? In this place? With that thing hunting us? He stood and moved to the cave's mouth, spear in hand. Then let it come. Outside, the jungle pulsed. And deep in its roots, something ancient shifted. The war they had buried was waking up. They came without sound, without signature, without names. 6 figures in black carapace armor dropped from the stratosphere, their descent buffered by anti-grav packs that hissed like serpents in the night. They landed in a staggered formation among the blood-leaf ferns, knees sinking slightly into the damp, sentient moss of Veridios. The jungle didn't scream, Veridios didn't scream, but the canopy rippled as if inhaling. Leading them was Talon Drax. His face was obscured by an obsidian visor, but beneath it lay a surgical array of scars, cybernetic implants, and an ever-burning hatred. Once the sworn sword of Vaer's throne, now the blade of its usurpers. He activated his gauntlet, and a soft pulse spread through the soil, seeking, tracing, tasting. Bio-signature traces, royal DNA. They were here, he said, his voice filtered, mechanical. An hour ago. Another hunter, smaller but faster, scanned the twisted trees. Trail ends at the rift line. She's moving with a guide. Talon turned toward the east. No guide survives this jungle. But even as he said it, something in his gut twisted. He had read the files. He knew the rumors. The jungle ghost. The dead man who wasn't. Thane Voss, he muttered. Sirius stirred as the cave darkened. Her leg throbbed with heat, the pain a dull drum beat. She reached for the signal band on her wrist, burned, but operational. With shaky fingers, she triggered a distress beacon to the Vaeran resistance fleet hidden in the asteroid ring of Iros 9. A pulsing red error blinked across the cracked screen. Signal blocked. Thane stepped into view. The forest kills transmissions. Something in the air. Not natural. She looked up sharply. A virus. Biocode, he said. The jungle's not just alive. It adapts. Learns. She frowned. Then we're blind. Not blind. Just hunted. They moved out before dawn. The forest churned, roots shifting underfoot as if aware of their presence. Sirius limped but kept pace. Thane had fashioned her a splint from bone and woven bark. Crude, but efficient. Their path led them into the hallowed rifts, a place where the ground floated, vast root bridges hanging in midair like tendrils of a god. The terrain shifted every few hours, like a living maze. One wrong step and the ground might no longer be there. Sirius paused, watching a floating slab of earth glide past them, carrying an entire colony of glowing beetles. This place is alive, she said. But not in the way forests should be. It remembers pain, Thane replied. Just like us. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind them. He moved before she could react, spear up, body low. A creature lunged from the foliage. Lean, hairless, spindly limbs ending in claws like glass. Eyes blind, mouth full of rotating teeth. A ferox stalker. Thane tackled Sirius sideways as the beast slashed down. They rolled, leaves exploding around them. He jammed his spear into its throat, but it twisted, hissing. Another was coming. Thane shouted, "Move!" Sirius scrambled for a rock. No weapon. Nowhere to run. The second stalker leapt. She turned, screamed, and drove the jagged stone into its eye mid-air. The creature shrieked, thrashed, and fell dead beside her. Panting, covered in gore, Sirius stared at her hands. Thane finished the first stalker with a second thrust, then looked at her not with surprise, but approval. "You'll need to do worse than that," he said. She nodded slowly. Her breathing steadied. "Teach me." And so he did. Behind them, in the high reaches of the canopy, Talon Drax stood on a rotting branch, visor shimmering. "Confirmed," one of the pack whispered through comms. "It's him. Voss." Talon's fingers tightened on his rifle. "Then we end the ghost." Below, the jungle shifted. And the hunt began. The mist thickened as they crossed the threshold into Zither. It clung to their skin, tasted like copper on the tongue, and shifted with colors not found in any spectrum. Thane slowed his steps, eyes darting over the terrain. The moss was damp, spongy, but didn't compress like normal under his boots. It breathed. Beneath the surface, pale tendrils pulsed with a quiet rhythm, like nerves reacting to their presence. "This is Zyther," he murmured. Sirius said nothing, but her hand rested instinctively near the blade he'd given her. Her leg still hurt, but the pain now served as an anchor in a world that was beginning to feel unreal. A sound broke through the quiet, not an animal, not a drone, but something older like a voice carried on wind through bone. It whispered her name. She turned. Standing in the clearing, impossibly real, was a figure draped in royal robes, face serene, eyes filled with warmth. "Father," she whispered. The figure smiled. "You came back to me, Sirius. I always knew you would." Thane didn't hear it. His vision narrowed. The jungle pulsed again. And suddenly, he was elsewhere. Dust. Screams. A marble hallway scorched by plasma fire. He kicked open a door, weapon raised. Inside, a child. White eyes. Wrong place. Wrong time. He remembered shouting. The shot. The blood. His breath quickened. His spear lowered. His balance shifted. Behind him, the swamp boiled. The illusions cracked as the creature rose. Bracos. Thick as tanks, armored with plates grown from silicate and bone, they moved like boulders given purpose. Their eyes were clusters of black pearls. Their mouths opened sideways, spewing jets of digestive acid that melted metal. Two emerged first, rising silently from the mire like statues waking from sleep. The third erupted behind Thane. He shouted, snapped from the vision just in time to block the first strike. Acid splashed across his arm guard, eating through the composite. He rolled, dodged a second, and drove his spear between the plates of the third. It pierced flesh, but not deeply enough. Sirius. Move. She stood frozen, still staring at the phantom of her father. Then the image blinked, his eyes melted, his mouth dripping rot, and the truth shattered her trance. The second Bracos turned toward her. Thane intercepted, but too late. The creature knocked him off his feet with a single swing. He hit a root, hard. Vision blurred. Sirius turned, grabbed a branch coated in fungal resin, and ran. She shouted to draw its attention. The beast charged. At the last second, she ducked, rammed the resin-laced wood into the monster's gill flap, and twisted. A burst of spores erupted. The Bracos screamed a sound like steam through stone and collapsed, writhing. Thane tried to rise but collapsed again. Acid had found his side. The armor was gone. Skin bubbled. Blood hissed. Sirius dragged him under a twisted canopy, breathing hard. "Stay awake," she ordered. He groaned, barely conscious. "Not your command." She reached into her satchel, pulled out a vial of green sap wrapped in gold mesh. Pressed it to the wound. It fizzed, sizzled, but slowed the burning. "Royal elixir," she said. "Harvested from the heart root. My mother taught me. You're lucky I remember." Thane blinked up at her. "You're not just a queen." "No," she said. "I'm what this jungle made me." They lay still for a moment as the swamp receded, taking the illusions with it. No voices. No ghosts. Just the slow rhythm of survival. Above them, the trees swayed. And far away, Talon Drax paused. His visor glitched for a heartbeat. "They've entered Zyther," one of his pack said. He nodded. "Then let the forest break them." But even he didn't trust Zyther. Few did. Fewer returned. The wind shifted as they crossed into the Valley of Stone. Here, the jungle thinned. Trees gave way to spires tall, smooth, metallic columns jutting from the earth like the broken bones of some long-dead god. Between them, moss and memory intertwined. The air was colder. Not in temperature, but in tone. Syria moved ahead without hesitation. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the twilight sky, a streak of moonlight in the iron shadows. Thane followed, slower, each step dragging at something old and buried. He had been here before. They reached the heart of the ruins, a structure coiled upward like a helix, silent but humming faintly as they approached. Syria placed a palm on the panel near the base. A pulse of recognition passed through her skin, and the doorway unsealed with a whisper of static. "The Echo Spire," she said. Thane nodded. "I remember the name." Inside, it was colder still. The air tasted like electricity and rusted steel. Screens flickered to life along the walls, casting data sigils in ancient Varen script. Syria approached a central console, fingers dancing over runes. "This place was built during the first expansion," she explained. "For memory transfer. Neural mapping. Emotional recording. We used it to preserve history, until we started rewriting it," Thane finished. She looked at him. "You remember that?" He didn't answer. He was already staring at the chamber ahead, a cradle of curved steel and soft light. "The neural realignment pod. It might hurt," she said. "It might bring back things you wish had stayed buried." He stepped inside without hesitation. Some wounds deserved to be reopened. As the pod sealed around him, light flooded his vision. Not white, but silver, like her hair. Then darkness. Then the Hall of Judgment. Gilded marble. Voices rising. Accusations. He stood before the tribunal, blood on his hands, not from betrayal, but from refusal. He had defied the order. Syria, younger, stood beside him not as a queen, but as a woman desperate to save lives. She had chosen him. Named him her sword. And he had raised that sword not against the enemy, but against those giving the wrong orders. He saw the moment again when he was taken. Not killed, but erased. Stripped of rank, memory, name. Sent into exile not for treason, but for mercy. Thane gasped as the pod opened. Syria caught him before he collapsed. He looked at her, and for the first time, truly saw her not just a queen, not just a survivor, but the woman who had once believed in him more than he believed in himself. "You chose me," he said. She nodded, eyes wet. "And I never stopped." Before either could speak further, the chamber lights shifted, red pulse, breach alert. A voice echoed through the spire, cold and sharp. "Touching reunion. Shall I give you time to embrace, or shall we skip to the betrayal?" General Malgareth. He stepped from the shadows, flanked by two synth guards, his cloak embroidered with the seal of the Varen Reformation. His face was older, but the smirk remained like a knife that never dulled. "You know why I'm here," he said, looking at Thane. "I saw your neural trace spike. You remember now. You remember everything. Including what you did." Thane stood. "I remember what I stood for." Malgareth circled. "And what did it get you? Loyalty? A broken mind? An exile in the dirt? Syria used you once, and she'll do it again. Come with me, Voss. The throne is dying. But a new world is blooming. And you are already rooted elsewhere," Thane interrupted. Syria raised her weapon, but Thane raised a hand. "No. He needs to leave here knowing we remember. That we chose." Malgareth's smirk faltered. Thane stepped forward, face carved from stone. "You erased my name. You rewrote my story. But this jungle, this woman, this pain, gave it back." Malgareth exhaled slowly. "Then I suppose the forest can bury you again." He signaled. The synth guards raised their rifles. Thane and Syria stood back to back. Silver and steel, together. In the shadows, the jungle listened. The cinderwood was a dead forest. Once lush and teeming, now nothing but blackened trunks and ghostly ash drifting in stagnant air. Fires from a forgotten war had scarred it, and the land had never forgiven. Beneath the soot, old bones stirred. And now, through its ashen canopy, came the thunder of booted feet and drones. Talon Drax moved at the head of the vanguard. His black carapace armor absorbed the light. Around him, rebels clad in reformed imperial plating advanced in silence, their visors glowing faintly red. Talon didn't speak. He simply raised his hand and pointed toward the green horizon where the jungle still lived. "Burn it," he said. Flame casters ignited. Trees ignited. Roots hissed. The living jungle roared. Far ahead, Sci-Fi stood atop a plateau carved from vine and thyme, overlooking the smoke rising from the cinderwood's edge. Around her, warriors of the Thornyx stood armed not with plasma rifles, but with curved bone blades, toxin darts, and armor grown from bark and chitin. They were not many. But they were ready. Thane joined her side, his breath slow and calm. Behind him, something moved. It was huge. Silent. Its exoskeleton shimmered like oil, sleek and coiled. 6 legs, a tail like a whip, and eyes that saw too much. It was a Kriegar. He placed a hand on the creature's flank, and it leaned into his touch. "You tamed that?" Sci-Fi asked. "No," he replied. "We came to an understanding." She almost smiled, then turned serious. "The Thornyx are ready. But they won't die for symbols. I had to promise them something real." He glanced sideways. "What did you give them?" "Tech from the royal vaults. Biofabricators. Seed code. Enough to regrow their shattered world." Thane nodded. "You did the right thing. It was the only thing." Below, the trees shook. The enemy was coming. The first volley of fire set the canopy ablaze. But this jungle was not passive. It screamed. It countered. Vines wrapped around gun barrels. Spore clouds blinded optics. Thornyx warriors melted from the trees, striking like shadows. And then, the Kriegar roared. It moved like black lightning. Claws slashed through alloy. A synth tank reeled as its pilot was torn from the hatch. Thane followed, wielding twin blades salvaged from a fallen enemy. His strikes were precise. Brutal. Final. Sci-Fi led from above, directing movement through bio-linked comms the Thornyx had woven into the trees themselves. She fired with a stolen rifle, took down a drone mid-flight, ducked as a burst of energy tore past. But then Talon appeared. He stepped through the flames untouched, eyes locked on Sci-Fi. His presence parted the battlefield like a blade. She turned, gun raised. "Hello, Your Grace," he said. She fired. He deflected it with his forearm, advanced. Still quick. But not quick enough. She backed away, switching to blade, slashing low. He caught her wrist, twisted. The blade fell. He could have killed her. Instead, he hesitated. "I held you once, when you were too small to stand," he said softly. "You cried when I left." Her eyes narrowed. "Then you betrayed me?" "No, I obeyed. And I regretted it every moment since." Behind them, the battle raged. Screams. Fire. The Kriegar impaled a trooper through the chest. Thornyx arrows rained. Sci-Fi took the moment of Talon's pause to strike with a hidden blade, slicing his side. He grunted, staggered. "That was for my people," she said. Talon didn't fight back. He turned, called for retreat. "This forest is not ours. Not today." The rebels fell back, scattering like ash on the wind. Silence returned slowly. The jungle sighed. Thane walked to Sci-Fi's side, eyes scanning the ruin. Her face was streaked with dirt and blood, but her spine was straight. "He spared you," he said. "Once," she replied. "That won't happen again." The Kriegar let out a low, approving growl. Under the canopy's burned remains, the fire still smoldered. But they had won. For now. The jungle had gone too quiet. Siraya felt at first a weight in the air that made the hairs on her arms rise. Thane noticed it next. Birds stopped calling. Insects fell still. Even the roots underfoot seemed to hold their breath. The victory at Cinderwood had come at a cost. They had driven back Talon's forces, but now something deeper stirred. Something older. They made camp near the ruins of an overgrown observatory, letting the Thornix regroup and the Kriegar rest. As night fell, flickering spores drifted across the air like dying stars. Siraya stared at the flickering flames. Something's watching us. Thane nodded. No. Something's listening. He stood, but the moment he stepped outside the firelight, the earth shifted beneath him. Roots curled unnaturally, twitching as if touched by thought. Then the signal came. It wasn't light or sound but vibration. A coded pulse through the soil, carried by the neural fibers of the jungle itself. Ancient. Perfect. Designed to infiltrate any bio-connected system. The Thornix screamed. Some of them collapsed, clutching their heads. Others began to convulse. A few rose with eyes clouded white, movements stiff, puppet-like. They are being hijacked, Siraya gasped. Thane grabbed her wrist. Run. They didn't make it far before the attack split them. A tangle of vines lashed down from the canopy, slamming into the ground like iron whips. One struck between them. The force hurled Thane down a slope and into the mouth of a hollow root. Siraya screamed his name. He vanished into the dark. Thane awoke in a chamber beneath the jungle. It wasn't natural. The roots here had been carved, shaped into smooth, symmetrical walls. Pulsing with light. Whispering in thought. He stood, bruised, but intact. Around him, humanoid figures moved, once people, now twisted. Their limbs fused with bark, eyes replaced by mossy orbs, veins laced with fiber optic strands. The forest had absorbed them. From the shadows, a voice emerged, not spoken, but planted in his mind. Welcome back, Voss. You belong here more than you ever did up there. The voice was everywhere. Nowhere. Who are you? He growled. The chamber shifted, and a face materialized in the wall. No features, just suggestion. A swirl of root and light where a mouth might be. A cluster of tendrils in the shape of eyes. I am what they buried. What they feared. The crown thought it could suppress me. Strip me of form. But roots grow back. You're the faceless one. I was once Vair's guide. Its architect. A mind designed to nurture balance. Until they demanded obedience. So they severed me from the network. Banished me into silence. And now you control it again. The forest. The people. I unify. I correct. The rebellion, the corruption, the decay, it all began when they ignored nature. I am nature's will, Voss. And you are its blade. I'm not yours. You were. Before they erased you. Before Siraya chained you to her cause. I remember what she did. Thane's fists clenched. Images swirled in the walls. Siraya, younger, arguing at the palace gates. Thane at her side. The tribunal. The sentence. The exile. She fought for me, he said. She saved me. Did she? Or did she use you because she had no one else? The roots trembled. The puppets advanced, weapons of bone and vine. Join me, the faceless one whispered. You don't have to be alone anymore. Thane reached for his blade. It wasn't there. Just his fists. The first puppet attacked. He sidestepped, drove his elbow into its throat. It crumbled like wet wood. The second swung. He ducked, yanked a shard of root from the floor, and stabbed upward. He moved like a storm, dancing through a sea of half-dead, half-grown enemies. Every strike was desperate. Every breath, a war. He reached a tunnel and ran. Behind him, the chamber screamed. Above, the jungle stirred. And Sci-Fi, alone now, began her descent into the roots. At the heart of Veridios stood the trunk spear, a colossal tree older than recorded time. Its bark shimmered with embedded crystal, and its roots spanned miles beneath the surface. This was where the jungle remembered. This was where the Faceless One nested. Thane emerged from the tunnels beneath, bloodied but burning with purpose. He'd tracked the signal, followed the pulse of the hive to the tree's base. The entrance gaped like a wound. Inside, the roots pulsed with light, as if carrying thought instead of sap. He descended through spiraling tunnels, past cocoons that twitched with half-formed things, into the living brain of a planet. Above, Sci-Fi stood within a shattered comms relay atop the cliffs of Morning Reach. She had tapped into the last of the royal network, overridden the jamming codes, and wired her voice across the stars. To every colony that still remembers Vera, she said. You were lied to. The throne was not taken, it was stolen. The truth was buried. But it lives. Her message surged outward into deep space, into forgotten outposts, into stations long silent. Civilians watched. Soldiers paused. Rebel leaders hesitated. Inside the trunk spear, Thane found the core. A sphere of neural light, suspended in root veins. Floating in zero gravity. Alive. A whisper echoed from every direction. You shouldn't have come. I had to, Thane said. To end this. You can't kill thought. No, he replied. But I can cut it off. He drove a blade of forged obsidian into the core's anchor. Screams exploded across the chamber. The roots convulsed. The hive shrieked. Above, Sci-Fi's transmission reached its climax. Footage played of Malgaretha's treachery, of the faceless corruption, of Thornix's civilians turned into bio-slaves. The stars erupted with reaction. Talon Drax stood alone in a burning glade, visor cracked. He'd seen the truth. The Faceless One had lied. Controlled. Twisted his oath. He found Sci-Fi's enemies converged. They are coming, she said, drawing her blade. He didn't raise his weapon. You trusted me once, he said. Let me earn it. Then he turned, facing the incoming threat, half tree, half metal soldiers. He charged, buying her seconds. Then minutes. Then silence. In the depths of the hive, Thane was dying. The neural network fought back, tendrils digging into his skin. Whispering to his blood. Trying to overwrite. You don't have to be alone, it said. You could be eternal. He roared and drove the second blade into the nexus. Everything ruptured. The core pulsed once, then died. Lights went out. Roots withered. Puppets collapsed. Thane fell to his knees. But something lingered. A thread of the hive, embedded in him now. He felt the jungle's breath, the soil's memory. He felt Sci-Fi's scream echo through the earth. He wasn't alone. And above, as the sky cleared, a signal went out. Vera lives. When the war ended, it did not do so with parades or banners. It ended in silence, in breath, in the slow unfurling of green where fire once lived. Sci-Fi stood before the gathered tribes, generals, survivors, and ghosts of what Vera had been. The High Assembly had been rebuilt not from marble but from living wood, shaped by the jungle's consent. She wore no crown. Her voice carried enough weight. The Age of Thrones ends today, she said. No one will rule from above again. From this moment forward, Vera belongs to all its people. Humans, Thornix, the verdant kin, and every voice the forest still remembers. A murmur passed through the crowd. Then, slowly, heads bowed. Not in submission but in agreement. A council formed 12 from across the world and stars, chosen not by lineage but by merit. A new Vera, built in roots and reason. Sci-Fi stepped back, and for the first time in her life, felt truly sovereign. Far from the assembly, on the borderlands where the trees grew wild and whispers carried farther than wind, Thane walked alone. The jungle had accepted him, not as a king, but as something older. He spoke to roots, and they answered in silence. Birds nested on his shoulders. Kriegar curled at his feet. They called him the guardian of the green. But he called himself only Thane. Sometimes, Siraya came to visit. Not as queen, but as Siraya. They sat together beneath the oldest boughs and spoke of days past, not to mourn them, but to remember. They did not marry in ceremony. There was no vow in public squares. But one night, beneath stars and spores, she took his hand, and he did not let go. No crowns, she whispered. No walls, he replied. And that was enough. Years passed. Wounds faded, but not completely. Scars became stories. The jungle healed, as did they. And yet, one night, as Thane walked the edge of the deep canopy, where light barely touched, he heard a voice carried in the rustle of leaves. I'm still here, Thane. Memory cannot be killed. He froze. No shape. No shadow. Just breath. The forest around him sighed, as if holding something deeper than air. He placed a hand on the nearest trunk. Then let it remember, he said. The roots beneath him pulsed once. And were still.